All right, welcome back. This is part two, maybe of three. We'll see. I love talking about classroom management. But I stopped with responsible thinking process. It's from a man named Ed Ford, and there's very similar concepts of assertive discipline. If you make a continuum, and like I said, this probably, hopefully, is reviewed from some coursework you had here at Wayne State College. So let me just explain the concept to you a little briefly about what I did and how I use this. For the most part, it's the avoiding of telling students what they're doing and asking them what they're doing. So instead of saying, stop talking, or you need to be more polite, or you should be listening better, it's more questions. And the main question just is, what are you doing? And honestly, you have to kind of practice that to make sure you're saying it in a respectful way, but in a real curious way of, what are you doing? And the student will tell you, often they'll take a step back and then realize they got caught doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. And then from that leads a conversation where they might say something like, I'm talking. And then I say, okay, well, what's the rule? And they'll say, well, no talking while you're talking. And I'll say, okay, yeah, thank you. That is the rule. And the next question is, what will happen if you continue to choose to do what you're doing? And they're like, well, I'm going to get in trouble. I'll sit by myself. I might have to go to a student responsibility classroom if your school has something like that set up. Various consequences, whatever the consequence will be. And then you ask them, well, do you want that to happen? And of course, they tend to say, no, I don't want that to happen. And then you say, then what will you do? And they'll say, I'm going to stop talking. Does this take longer than simply saying stop talking? Yes, it does. But is it better? It's definitely better. It's a lot better to put the ownership on the student and ask them to really go through these steps with you of what you're doing. Do you have to teach this? Yes. Is it different than many other teachers probably do? Yes. That's part of student teaching. So if you're watching this video right now and then you go to your classroom teacher, um, sorry. All right, sorry about that. I got an email pop up and I hope that didn't mess up the video. If it did, you saw an email pop up. Anyways, but the whole point of the video and the whole point here is you might be doing something different than your classroom teacher, and that's part of student teaching. And you might have to say to them, well, I've learned this method briefly. I never really heard about it much. Have you heard about something like this? How do you discipline the students? How do you manage the classroom? And maybe giving them something different like this is a starting point for a conversation on how to do classroom management well and respectful. But remember, the point really isn't to have all your students being silent or hardworking all the time and just working from the moment they get to class and the moment to leave or something like that. But the point is to have a learning environment. And this helps to have a respectful learning environment where the students are taking ownership for their actions. Okay, the next slide is kind of putting all of this together. And what I mean by this is the First Days of School book, my Ron Clark book about manners, and then Ed Ford. The number one thing is you can't just do this alone. If you do everything in your classroom well, but your school is dysfunctional and the school doesn't have a very good system in place for consequences, especially, it's not going to work well. For me, I loved having a school where we had a natural consequence, where everybody knew that if you had broken a rule and you were being disrespectful in the classroom, you'd have to go to the student responsibility classroom. We'll talk more about that in a moment. You have to get this. You have to get all the other teachers on your side. So must make sure to get to know them well and have them trust you, have them work with you. The principal should be on your side. I know that's kind of scary because here you're coming into a school new, and getting the parents on your side. One of the best things that you can possibly do is get to know parents as soon as possible. Contact them, reach out to them, have a chat on the phone with them, get to know them so that when you do have to tell them that their student had a problem that day, you can be like, well, we talked the other day and I know how much you focus on being respectful at home and I know how important it is for your kids to behave well. This came as a surprise to me and I'm sure it'll be a surprise to you. Hey, your child had a bad day today. That's such a better conversation than calling someone for the first time and having to give bad news. I'm saying, you've never heard from me before, you don't know who I am, and your kid had a bad day. Um, One of the things you really need to work through is what system that you have for motivating good behavior, and is it really allowed? Sometimes we just consciously, you just kind of go back to what happened in the past. And maybe you had a teacher who would always pass out candy to kids, or stick a piece of candy on any paper that had 100% or something like that. Well, school might now in 2020 might not allow candy, or not allow for any special treats to be brought in that have a lot of sugar for health concerns. So just make sure you know the school policies and what is allowed and what's not allowed. And then, of course, you are responsible to actually sit down and plan engaging and effective lessons that actually focus on teaching concepts. So please avoid the teachers pay teachers, the freelessonplan.com type websites, even Pinterest, and really focus in on the state standards and think about, what are you trying to teach here, and how's the best way to go about doing that? What would make the most sense for you? Talk to other teachers, see what they've done in the past, take things that you think are good and use it. If things aren't so good, or things aren't so aligned with the actual assessment you're trying to do, then don't do it. So even if something is really fun, like making a diorama or something like that, is what teachers have done in the past for an activity, if it doesn't really connect to what the students are actually learning, then that's not really what you should be doing. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this on track here. I really would love to recommend working on training your students in the way that you want them to act. Because you're starting, if you are watching, I'm sorry, because I might use these videos in the spring too. If you're watching this in the fall, you kind of have a little bit advantage because you're training them from the very beginning. You're not coming in at the middle of the year. So sorry for those. If I do use this video in the spring semester, that's a little bit of a disadvantage because you're coming in halfway through the year. I personally did a lot of things before school started to make sure that I was prepared. I knew where my students were going to sit. I knew where I wanted things to go. I had the classroom how I wanted it to be, and I knew what policies and procedures I had. Here's a tip. If you can get to know your students' names and faces before they come into the school, that's a huge way to make a great first impression and really save you a lot of time as well. Yearbooks from the year past, if the school had a school yearbook, is the easiest way to do that. So, or just talk to the teachers from the previous year. If they have files that have a student's picture on it, then you can match a name to the face. So on that first couple of days, when you'll still ask them, what's your name? And the kid says, my name's Tanner. You're like, oh yeah, I know your name's Tanner. I saw it in the yearbook, right? But it helps you to quickly get to know your students and their names. So I personally, first day of school, we went over rules, and I really focused on teaching the rules and training the rules. And then after I modeled it as well, we'd enforce the rule. And I'd make sure that I'd practice what that would look like with my students. It sounds boring, but it's really actually kind of fun. My students actually love the first couple days of school in terms of things like I would talk to them about behavior in the hallway, and I would let them pretend, like we would pretend we're in the hallway, and I'd let a kid run into me and bump into me and show what we're supposed to do if you accidentally bump into somebody. Or I'd have, I'd pretend that I was sitting at a desk and I'd drop a pencil, and we'd role play about what you're supposed to do. Like, hey, here's your pencil, excuse me, you dropped your pencil, not, yo, you dropped your pencil, and make a big scene, right? And so this was part of the fun of the fact that I would sometimes show them what not to do. We'd talk about why we wouldn't do that, and then we'd model how to do it. Does it take time? Yes. Is it something you should lesson plan? Definitely. Classroom management is something that has to be learned and taught. And there's an expectation that you have. And if you just pretend that you have it, or you just think, well, I'm sure that they can understand what I believe, that's not going to work. So the more that you can think about lesson planning for classroom management, the better. Okay, first 2 weeks of school, I completed what I called my manner training. I'm talking about, it took a while. Every couple of days, I was showing something new. First couple of days, we did what was essential. After that, I did things like what's going to happen when we go on a field trip, what I want it to look like about recess, all those kind of things. The other thing I really focused heavily on is using learning as a way to help classroom management. So memorization, I call them chants or songs. I'm not very really don't sing very well, but I can chant and rap and those kind of things decent enough that kids think it's funny. But things like the states in alphabetical order, I had my kids memorize that. The presidents in order, in chronological order, their names, I had to memorize that. I had a timeline poem that they had to memorize as well. We had other poems we memorized. All of this helped me in transition time. So what I mean by this is if between math and social studies, I wanted the students to start getting things out and get ready, my cue was say Alabama. And I would say Alabama, and they would go Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, right? And they'd go on Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, and they'd keep going. The point of that is that I was doing something that was engaging and had them learning, but helped me with transition time. Think of the day as this, where you are going to have ebb and flows of some intensity, and then you kind of have them work, and they're gradually released, and they're on their own. You bring them back together, up and down, up and down. What you don't want is this, right? You don't want this chaotic day where you're going to have a migraine headache because your kids are doing crazy things, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my goodness, we got to get to the buses, 3 o'clock. So managing those transition times between things is key. And then, of course, school-wide, all year long, I had a reward program that helped. Okay, so I'm going to dive into some of my details. I'll probably end up maybe with I'll probably run out. Maybe I might be able to squeeze it in one video, or I might have to have another. Remember, this was an hour-long session before, so I'm trying to make it into less than 45 minutes at the latest. Okay. So here are my classroom rules. You can come up with your own classroom rules, and you can think about mine or analyze mine however you want. But pretty much I wanted my students to follow directions, be respectful. The keep hands, feet, and objects to ourselves was an actual rule from my principal for most of my career. That was his #1 rule. So I wanted to incorporate that into my classroom rules as a way to show that I respected his school rule as well. And then my last one that you see there, work hard, listen while being taught, and be prepared for success, was this big mantra that we had at the end about like, this is what we're here for, right? And so I will say that I struggle a little bit, I know, with #1, follow all directions, right away, all the way with the right attitude every day, because it's a compliance. I wanted my students to do what I asked them to do. And I was going to tell them, like, I'm going to tell you this I'm going to be very respectful, but when I ask you to do something, I want you to do it. That is just because that's my role as a teacher. If I say, I need you to get to work right now, you're supposed to get to work. You're not supposed to talk back and say, and do we have to now? No, it's work time. Let's get this done. And that tied into everything else. So these are my rules. Analyze it however you want. Think about it. Talk to your cooperating teacher about the rules that you have, of course. Okay, school-wide discipline. I kind of mentioned this with the Ed Ford already. Went through this a little bit. This is what my school had. The first time you broke a rule, we went through it, and you just had the questioning, and you just tell them to don't do it, right? Are you gonna, do you want to keep breaking the rule? Do you want the consequence? And they're like, no, I'm good, thanks. And that was usually the first time. It was a warning. They felt, and of course, I'm not doing this publicly. Usually it's a private conversation next to the kid, talking to him or her. And that was the first time. Second offense, if it happens again, they go sit at a desk by themselves. Okay, I know we'll talk about seating, you talk about seating arrangements forever and ever, but I sat my kids in groups, and then being removed from a group was a natural consequence because they wanted to be in groups. Third offense was they went to, and this is where the school-wide part is, they went to our student responsibility classroom, which required them to call their parents, usually at work, and tell them what was going on that day. And so that was really the big consequence, was not being sent out of the classroom, but because when they were sent out of the classroom, then they had to call their parents. They called their parents, had to have a conversation with their parents at work, usually, and that was a major deal. All right. Gonna stop there, get some more water, make one more video. Sorry, thanks.